Well, just like everyone else who owns a PC and has any remote interest in FPS titles, I've been checking out the Battlefield 6 open beta for the past couple of weekends. Not surprisingly, there's been a lot of mixed opinions out there surrounding it so far, although I'd say the overall consensus seems to be net positive. The game's got a lot going for it. First and foremost, it's optimized extremely well, allowing even older hardware to fairly easily maintain at least 60 FPS. If you have a halfway decent gaming rig, I'm sure you'll be able to achieve this, and most likely much more, depending on your CPU. Beyond performance, the gunplay is solid, and there are some really great customization options as far as weapons are concerned. Weapon animations are also absolutely superb, which Garand Thumb recently released a video talking about a lot of this, which I would highly recommend checking out. They did a really good job here. Also, the game is just fun to play, at least in my opinion. And although I'm not really a big multiplayer FPS guy, at least not anymore, I did used to play them when I was quite a bit younger, and I can still appreciate a good one when it comes my way. It did take me a bit of time to get back into the swing of things, but once I did, I was having an absolute blast. When the beta ended, I wanted more. So what did I do? I returned to Battlefield 4, and boy do I have some opinions now. Now keep in mind, what we've seen of Battlefield 6 is an open beta. We haven't seen all the maps yet, which it does look like we'll be getting some larger ones, and other changes can potentially be made. But with that said, after going back and playing Battlefield 4, I've gotta say, I understand the people that are complaining about Battlefield 6's pacing, among other things, despite these games' similarities. You've got your multiple classes, weapon customization and unlocks, vehicles, squad spawning, similar game modes, and a very rooted in reality aesthetic. But the execution of a lot of these elements is vastly different. If I had to summarize it generally, I'd say Battlefield 4 feels like a more hardcore experience, might be the best way to put it, and I think a large reason for this is due to one thing in particular: the auto spotting, or just spotting in general. I'm not sure exactly the best way to refer to it. In the open beta, basically, if you just glanced in the general direction of where an enemy was in position, a little red dot would appear above their head, which spotting like this can happen in Battlefield 4, but you have to do it by pressing an input. This completely changes the dynamic of gameplay since it makes it very easy to spot enemies, even if they're in cover. And at the same time, it makes it very easy for your enemies to spot you, which creates the situation where you and your opponent are on a sort of equal footing going into engagements, potentially eliminating the element of surprise from whatever party was going to get the drop on the other one. Not only does this sort of stagnate gameplay in my opinion, it also sort of clutters up your screen with all these red dots. Which, yeah, we already have quite a lot going on with the HUD in this game, so I think this could definitely be toned down a little. Next, let's talk time to kill, or TTK. People seem to be all over the place when it comes to this. Some say it's too slow, other people say it's too fast. Personally, I feel it's fine right where it is. Yes, it can seem extremely quick, especially if your opponent lands some headshots on you, but if you compare it directly to Battlefield 4, you'll see it's actually right about the same. If anything, it may be a tad slower. I will say though, especially early on in the first weekend of the beta, there were some times where I felt like the TTK was a little slow, but these were sort of one-offs, and I'm not sure if that could have been chalked up to possible hit detection issues that were occurring. I can't say for sure. All I know is, with those rare exceptions, I honestly think the time to kill felt right on the money. Now, recoil is one where I'm honestly not quite too sure how I feel. In Battlefield 4, recoil is a mix of both perceived recoil, where your sight will move around as you're firing, and a sort of bloom effect, where the longer you fire, the less accurate your shots will be, depending on what attachments you have on your weapon. From my playtime, I found that this tends to make longer range fights require firing in more controlled bursts, as opposed to just holding down the trigger. In Battlefield 6, there does still seem to be some sort of a small bloom effect, but it's nowhere near as pronounced, and it definitely gives the guns a sort of more modern Call of Duty-ish feel to them, where your rounds tend to go where your reticle is. If you can control a gun's recoil, you can definitely hit some longer range shots, even in full auto. Plus, some of the guns can be built in ways too so that they essentially have zero recoil, like the AK-205 for instance. I'd be interested to see if we see any changes to this before the game's release, but let me know down below how you think recoil should be handled. Next, I want to talk about overall gameplay feel, specifically the pacing. There's no denying that Battlefield 6 is a faster paced game, and it's not really the movement that's responsible for it either, although I would argue that it is a tad faster just due to the fact that you can pretty quickly slide around, vault over objects, and go through things like windows much quicker than in Battlefield 4. Even if the base movement and sprint speed seems to be about the same. Everything else though is faster, with the biggest things in my opinion being healing and spawn times. And this has a pretty big effect on gameplay since it allows you to pretty quickly get back to wherever you just died. This means that if you clear enemies off a point to capture, by the time the point is getting ready to be capped, there's a good chance enemies will already be back there to contest it, especially when you factor in everyone else who's dying on the map and realizing that the point is about to fall. It sort of creates this effect where points swing back and forth much more. Now, whether or not this is a good thing is subjective. If you want a more fast-paced game, you'll probably be a fan of this. Otherwise, you may not be. That's not to say that Battlefield 4 can also be fast-paced. In the games I played, there were some truly chaotic moments, perhaps even more so than what I've seen in 6 so far, just due to the sheer amount of vehicles in play, but I found it to be sort of like a controlled chaos, where you'll be fighting over an objective for like 10 minutes straight, with a fairly observable battle line that both sides are fighting over. The feeling of the battlefield is just different. It's like I know pretty well where the enemy is or where they'll be coming from, and there's not a lot of just getting randomly beamed from some direction I wasn't looking. Not to say that never happens, but it did seem more rare. And I can say after experiencing this that I definitely get what people are saying when they talk about games of Battlefield 6 feeling stressful. It truly does seem like you can just die at any moment and you have to be on absolute high alert at all times. Now, I do think this could be resolved, at least partially, by having some larger, more open maps, but that remains to be seen. And it's also going to depend heavily on the design philosophy of those maps, because the maps we have currently tend to be designed in a way where there's almost like choke points or areas where lots of infantry are funneled through. So literally just as I was editing this video, there was a leak posted on Reddit that details some of the maps we have coming, and yeah, I think they look absolutely phenomenal, with some looking to have some really good sizing and verticality being shown off. I'm thinking these larger maps will have slightly slower pacing and maybe not quite as much chaos, but only time will tell. And I hope I haven't come across in this in a way that sounds too negative, because again, I really did enjoy the beta. I'll 100% be picking this game up on release. It may not be covered too much on the channel, but this will definitely be something I play in my spare time just for fun. I think the game really nails a lot of things when it comes to fun factor, and I can all but guarantee this game is going to break records. Just don't go into it thinking that the game is a clone of Battlefield 3 or 4. From what I've seen so far, I wouldn't call it a Call of Duty clone or anything, but it is definitely faster paced than those older titles. But if you're looking for a Battlefield-esque shooter that at times looks straight up cinematic while also running extremely well across a wide range of hardware, I think it's worth checking out. Let me know your thoughts on the beta down below, and as always, thanks for watching. Until next time.